Can you hear me?
तेरा करम करता रखा इज्जत भी दी बढ़ के दिया औकात से.
It's a Saturday night and you broadcast to Radio Al-Ansar, broadcasting to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
खता हर माफ तू फहरिस्ते इसियां को छोड़ दे
It's a Saturday night and your dial should be on 90.4 in Durban and 105.6 in Pietermaritzburg.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير.
This is Nightline, the program designed especially for you, the listener.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
Nightline's the only program that allows you to listen to the opportunity to voice your opinion on any topic or any matter that concerns you. Also on Nightline, we conduct interviews with the famous, the not so famous, and the infamous. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another program of Nightline. You're in the company of Brother Mahomed Variawa and Dr. Anwar Jeewa. The technician tonight is Spoon Kizi, like we have for every other night. It's a beautiful, amazing, and fantastic Saturday night. All thank most to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that allowed us to breathe again once you slept.
MashaAllah, yes, welcome. It's 10:36. You're listening to Nightline on this beautiful Friday night, Ramadan edition. As we had mentioned, we are going to be broadcasting live on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night on your beautiful favorite Nightline program. So you can contact us, send us your messages on 060-904-1056. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Brother Mahomed?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. From a very cold and rainy Krugersdorp in Gauteng province. It's very cold today. It was very cold.
Mashallah,
but I'm good, thank you. Jazakallah khair. I'm good.
So you relocated again?
Yeah, I relocated this weekend to Krugersdorp for a tournament. I'm back home, inshallah, on Sunday night. And I will be next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in the studio with you.
Looking forward to it. We're going to have a party. Mashallah.
We're going to have a party.
All the chows.
And I think it may also be the last weekend in Ramadan, I think.
And currently at the moment, we're 2 weeks down. We've got 2 more weeks to go. Time seems to be flying very, very fast. But we have a very interesting topic tonight that we can explore. And that is called the science of health and fasting. We have a wonderful guest online that's waiting for us. Let's welcome our guest. It is Dr. Taslim Ras, who is a specialist family physician who works at the University of Cape Town as an associate professor. He also holds a PhD in health science education and is currently the head of Department of Family, Community and Emergency Care. He has published locally and internationally on matters relating to health systems and health professionals' education. With colleagues, he has published in a scientific journal on the health impact of Ramadan fasting and has been presenting a segment on the same topic on community radio station or Radio 786 in the Cape Town for the last few years. Let's welcome Dr. Taslim Ras. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Jazakallah for inviting me to your radio station and to have this conversation. Very happy to be here.
MashaAllah. And how has been Ramadan for you in Cape Town? I know you have extra hours compared to us in Durban.
Our suhoor is a little bit later, and so our iftar is a little bit later. So it's been good, alhamdulillah, but the first 2 weeks have flown by. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Well, I am Anwar Jeewa, broadcasting from our studio, and my co-presenter, who's like a traveling presenter, travels more often than not, but nevertheless, is Brother Mahomed Variawa, that you can see live as
I
we
can
go
see.
along. Sure. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Nice to meet both of you. Walaikum salam wa
Jazakallah
rahmatullah.
khair.
So you see a guy with a big bald head, eh? Who
I
does he
see.
remind you?
I see a guy with a bald head and one with a receding hairline.
Have you got a formula for this, doctor?
Tell him, Doc. Tell him. He needs to get rid of that hair.
Yeah, if you see, you don't stand in the face of nature, Dr. Jeewa. You just go with the flow.
I don't know how old are you, but I asked you if he reminds you of somebody, but I doubt. I don't know if you heard of a famous actor called Yul Brynner.
Oh
my word!
What did they call it?
From Bud Spencer.
Kojak from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Kojak, yeah. Okay, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, so now you know my age a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, we're working out. We're doing the maths. Anyway, you're listening to Nite on Radio Ansar, as we are going to be talking about the science of health and fasting. As Muslims around the world, we are observing the blessed month of Ramadan, and many people are asking a very important question. What actually happens to the human body during fasting? Is fasting healthy? Are there medical benefits? Are there people who should be cautious during fasting? And to help us unpack this from a medical perspective, we are joined by Associate Professor Dr. Taslim Raz, a practicing Muslim doctor who has studied the health effects of fasting. So let's welcome him, which we have done. So the first question, doctor, is what happens in the body? So if you look at the basic science, what happens when a person stops eating and drinking from dawn to sunset? What actually happens inside the body during this time?
So I think that's a complicated question, Dr. Jeewa, but I'll try and answer it for your listeners in a few short sentences. Mm-hmm. I should probably start by saying that the wisdom behind fasting, as I started looking across the world at research that had been done in different places, I started appreciating a much more complex developing a much more complex understanding on what fasting actually does to our bodies. Now, we've been raised on the spiritual dimensions of fasting. But what I've discovered in the last 2 years, looking at this research, is that it has deep physical, psychological, emotional impacts on our lives, and that's something which is so profound that some people have even started studying fasting outside of Ramadan. And the effects of fasting has now come to be known as a potential weapon in our fight against multiple types of diseases. So if you're asking what effects it has multiple complex effects in our bodies. It's not just a simple thing of us staying away from food and drink and other enjoyments during the day. When we start the fast, there's a complex chemical, neurological, immune system response to the fasting state that we are only now starting to develop an understanding of.
Mm-hmm. So if you look at it, as you mentioned, that are you there, doctor?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at, as you mentioned, that the considerable benefits that it has. So there's been a lot of discussion about fasting improving health. Some people even follow diet trends that, they talk about intermittent fasting. Now, from a medical perspective, maybe if it's possible to break down the...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, doctor.
Oh, I missed your question, Dr. Jeewa. You said from a medical perspective, then your voice
Yeah.
floated out.
So we said from a medical perspective, what are the real health benefits to fasting? Would you like to break it down?
Yeah. So let's start with the most obvious, which is the biological effects. And this has been shown in multiple studies across the world now. Start with something like the effects on cardiovascular health. Fasting has been shown in the month of Ramadan that people who have elevated blood pressures, during the course of the month, those blood pressures drop, and there's a sustained drop in blood pressure for about 2 weeks after Ramadan. So not only during the period of fasting, but for the short period after fasting as well. So blood pressure, which we know is ubiquitous in our communities, approximately 30% of adults, maybe closer to 40% of adults are walking around with high blood pressure, on treatment or not on treatment. But fasting certainly has a direct impact on blood pressure levels. We also know, this is the obvious one, is that fasting impacts on our sugar levels, and so patients who are stable diabetics enjoy better rates of sugar control in during Ramadan. That is, if they are not eating the typical iftar Ramadan diet of sweet, oily foods. We also have seen in studies across the world that cholesterol is impacted in a very positive way during the month of Ramadan, and once again sustained for a few weeks after the month of Ramadan. More biological things that happen, and this for me was quite mind-boggling, is that for those patients who suffer from conditions of excess inflammation, people with overactive immune systems in terms of allergies or autoimmune conditions, the fasting directly impacts on a chemical called cytokine production. Cytokines, which is we call it an immune modulator. It modulates how the immune function works. And when cytokines are released in the body, our bodies start developing inflammation. Now, inflammation is a protective thing. We only need to build up when we have injuries or infection. But so some people, unfortunately, have a buildup of inflammation even when they don't have injuries or infections. And as you would know, this results in many, many different types of manifestations of disease in the body. Fasting has a direct impact on cytokine production, and by that mechanism, it produces its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. So quite an interesting array of biological responses. And then I think the one which is probably the most complicated of all, and I haven't wrapped my head around this. I've seen the epidemiological data, which is just the statistics, but don't fully understand the underlying mechanism. And that is how fasting impacts on the neurological system. And this is evidenced by people who have been suffering with things like depression, anxiety, that within 2 weeks of fasting on a daily basis, the depression and anxiety symptoms have started to improve. So on a biological level, there's a definite objective improvement in many indices, in many body systems that we're looking at, and on an emotional level, from a perspective of people who've been diagnosed, particularly with mood disorders, depression and anxiety. And this is research that use standardized scales to assess the levels of depression and anxiety that people were experiencing on a day-to-day basis. The first week of fasting, typically those measurements get worse. And that's normal, because even in healthy people, when we fast, there seems to be a mood disturbance in the first 5 to 7 days. And thereafter, across the board, we see that depression and anxiety ratings improve for the duration of the month and persist beyond the month for a few weeks again. And I think that's quite an interesting finding as well that we found in the literature, is that there's been very little research on the prolonged effects of Ramadan fasting. So I can't talk about what I know about that because actually the literature doesn't deal with it. Most likely because in the Muslim world where most of these this research is being done, we don't have a consistent application of the Nafil fast. And so it would be interesting if we could kind of collate a cohort of people that were fasting on a regular basis right through the year. We could then be able to measure whether or not some of these physical impacts are sustained beyond just the 30 days or 29 to 28 days of Ramadan. Well, 29 or 30 days.
So when you mentioned that it seems like a very good antidepressant, at the same time, on a lighter note, you find people that have a short fuse during fasting.
Absolutely. But that's been documented. I mean, the research indicates that's true. That even people who don't have diagnoses of depression, the first few days are hard and it's a bit of a shock to the system. But the system is quite resilient. Our systems are quite resilient and we recover pretty rapidly. I mean, what you read, what your listeners may or may not know is that the modern understanding of depression is that it's not just purely an emotional condition. It is an underlying, what the current hypothesis, it's not completely proven, but the current hypothesis is that there's an underlying hormonal component to it, in the sense that we have a neurotransmitter called serotonin, another neurotransmitter called noradrenaline, and these are thought to be quite important in managing our moods. And fasting seems to be having a direct positive impact on both of those hormones. How it happens, we're not sure. We think insulin and insulin metabolism has something to do with it. Insulin more and more is starting to coming to be understood to be a fairly central hormone in how the body and the brain works together. So before I get down the rabbit hole of hormones and the humoral system, I'll stop there now, Dr. Jeewa. I see we've lost Mahomed Hussein.
Yeah, he seemed to have disappeared, but nevertheless, we'll just continue. So as you had mentioned, you spoke early on about some research that you have been involved in. You want to share what it was about?
So my research was essentially just doing a fairly comprehensive literature review, which is what we term. So I looked at secondary data. I didn't go and engage directly with patients myself. And what was interesting is that this type of work had not been done before. When I looked for a comprehensive review of the current state of literature on fasting, I was unable to find anything. So the published work, and then the second interesting thing is that when we looked for published work on fasting, Ramadan fasting in South African medical journals, we couldn't find a single article. So the article that we published is now probably about 2 years ago now, represents, I'm going to be tentative and say it represents the first time that an kind of an exploratory paper has been published on the effects of Ramadan fasting in a South African journal. And the value of doing exploratory literature reviews of this nature is that it helps you identify where the gaps are, which would then lead us to say, okay, so if we're going to focus our research, if it's in the future, we're not going to be focusing on things that other people have already done. We need to now identify what are the new gaps. And for me, one of the biggest gaps is what happens after Ramadan. Because, it will all very well if we say that the month of Ramadan offers us these multiple health benefits. But how are those sustained? Do we need to be fasting every single day to achieve those benefits? Or if, for example, if we fasted on a Monday and Thursday right through the year, do we also enjoy some of those benefits? We just don't have the data for that. So that might be the direction that I would like to take this type of work forward, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Brother Mahomed, I believe you're having some difficulty, the sound quality.
Yeah, no, I am getting a very bad feedback, so I can't hear Dr. Taslim properly.
Okay, you want to ask him your question? We can hear you clearly.
I have, okay, good. I have a question. I don't have a question, but I want to make Dr. Wade, I'm hypertensive patient, and he's 100% correct that my high blood pressure is very good. I mean, the last time I checked, it was 117/70. And that's very, very good. Yeah, I'm not too sure whether Dr. Taslim spoke about the emotional and the physical part of fasting.
Yeah, we touched on it very briefly. I mean, there's so our article looked at depression and anxiety as diagnoses, which means people who have emotional dysfunction to the point that it's affecting their quality of lives. And Ramadan fasting generally has a positive impact. Just a word of caution: there were two diagnoses from a mental health point of view that we must warn with fairly significant amount of caution about. The first is bipolar mood disorder, which is also regarded as a mood disorder. And this typically is when patients would be cycling between moments of euphoria and moments of depression. So elevated moods and then depressed moods, and sometimes they're sitting somewhere in between. But that cycling is completely unpredictable, can be in response to any normal things that are happening in life. And where research has been done on patients with bipolar mood disorder, they found that on average, there were more admissions amongst fasting patients in Ramadan than amongst those who were not fasting. So with patients who are suffering, or families who are living with people who suffer with bipolar mood disorder, there's a cautionary note. One can have an early warning system in place, I suppose, and say, well, if you see anything going a little bit untoward, then the person should probably terminate their fast. Once again, the mechanism for this, I don't know. The studies we looked at didn't explore the mechanism. It just said in this group of people who are fasting, they're at a higher risk of hospitalization. So that's the first diagnosis, bipolar mood disorder. And the second diagnosis, which is also a very serious diagnosis, is schizophrenia. Schizophrenics, generally the international guidance is that they should not fast because much higher risk of having psychotic relapses. And so, once again, don't know the mechanism, but we just know that these two things exist together. So those are word of caution. Then the third quite interesting thing is that there's obviously a long conversation we can have about substance abuse, substance addiction, and the opportunities that Ramadan offers us in this regard.
Tell me more about the relationship, because that I have a huge interest in when it comes to the field of addiction.
Yeah, so one of the big challenges that we faced with in addictions medicine is oftentimes we focus on the substance, which is the cause of the addiction, and we focus on the person's behavior. But my experience, my other job before I joined academia full time is that for about 20 years I was an addictions medicine practitioner, and in those 20 years, I would say close to 100% of the patients that I saw who had serious recurring addictions, chronic things that they couldn't shake off, were people who had underlying mental health problems. Most commonly, depression, a major depressive disorder, or one of the anxiety disorders. And so Ramadan fasting offers us an opportunity here. On the one hand, detoxing off of the addiction needs to be done in a very strong, supportive environment. But at the same time, there needs to be attention paid to the underlying, potential underlying diagnosis that is fueling the addiction. And where this comes from is that we know now from very large epidemiological studies that people that have had some type of particularly childhood trauma, are at a much, much higher risk of having almost lifelong addiction in their adult years. And Ramadan offers us a wonderful moment in our lives where we're sitting and introspecting, thinking deeply, speaking to Allah at different times, maybe right through the whole day, where people are really able to engage very, very deeply with what they challenged with on a day-to-day basis. And so for me, the opportunity that Ramadan offers us from a substance abuse perspective is this multi-layered approach to thinking about addiction. It's not as if just because you're fasting that you would be you stand a better chance of getting away from the substance that you're abusing. But the environment, coupled with the physical effects of fasting, and the desire to introspect and make tawbah, I think all of those present a perfect storm for Ramadan to be a time of kind of stepping away from our addictions. Obviously, one can't also think that you'd solve all of these problems within 1 month. But it certainly is a fantastic time to start a journey that often takes years for people to recover from.
Very interesting, Dr. Taslim. To be honest with you, I'll share something personal with you. Exactly what you said is 100% correct. I personally overcame addiction 25 years ago in the month of Ramadan. 1st January 1998 was a month of Ramadan. I was in a treatment center, and 15 musallis came in to perform Taraweeh for me alone. I was the only Muslim out of 90 patients. And in that month, honestly, I've seen the changes. I felt the changes. I felt the spiritual feeling, the intervention, and the miracle. Since then, I overcame addiction. Never relapsed once.
Alhamdulillah. I think that is such a powerful narrative, Dr. Jeewa, because it's that alignment between the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the psychological, and the social. You know, that sometimes we approach addiction from a one-dimensional perspective. So if you go to a secular institution, oftentimes they'll speak about addiction as if it's just a medical problem. Or some people will say this is a psychological thing. But you know, if you really understand addiction is at its core, it is probably, and I say probably because this is just my opinion, it is probably a spiritual problem. And that spiritual problem then manifests emotionally, psychologically, and physically, and socially, because it impacts on your relationships. So what you've described is the perfect storm of probably, I don't want to say cure of addiction, but long-term road to recovery. I think that what you've described is probably the formula that we should be pursuing.
Mm-hmm. What about the immunity? Does fasting benefit in some way or other?
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned earlier, it's modulated by the direct impact on cytokines. Now, let me give you an example for those people who might not understand how dangerous cytokines are. When we were in the midst of the COVID pandemic, if you remember, in the first 5 days, we used to see people get sick, but they were not that sick. When they really got worse was around day 7 and day 8. And why did they get worse? It's because on day 7 and day 8, we had what was called the so-called cytokine storm. Mm-hmm. It took a week for your body to realize that there's a serious infection. And when the body realized that there was a serious infection, it flooded all of our systems with a massive immune response. And that immune response was so overwhelming that it caused multiple organs to shut down. It's called the cytokine storm. And that's when you have an overwhelming wave, like a tsunami of inflammation spreading through your body. And that killed many, many patients before we understood what was going on. So cytokines are important because they help protect the body. But in certain instances, a lot of the time, stimulated by the things that we eat, by our lifestyles of never sitting still, always being busy, and then by the amount of pollution that we face in our cities. So there's multiple ways in which we're introducing different types of toxins into our system. And these toxins cause damage. And in response to this damage, our bodies generate an inflammatory response, which is potentially harmful to us because we don't actually need the body to be in such a state of heightened immune action. What we found with fasting, with the evidence points to this, and this was obviously after they'd done serial blood tests through the month of Ramadan on patients that were fasting, that the excess production of cytokines was much lower during the fasting period amongst those people that were fasting. And so the impact of having an excessively active immune system was much less in the month of Ramadan. Now, this doesn't mean that the environmental and kind of the food toxins weren't still there. It just means that we didn't have the exaggerated response. And I would just think that if we were not living in such a toxic space, particularly in our large cities, that we would see an even bigger impact from a positive perspective on our health as a result of this, let's call it a anti-inflammatory effect of fasting. So it's just, the lives we live in the big cities, particularly busy, the types of food we eat, the things that we breathe in, all of these are detrimental to our health. And fasting helps with that process of not having an exaggerated response to all of these things that are entering into our body.
Okay, so the next question might be relatable to the listeners. And I find it a bit confusing because we normally use fasting, intermittent fasting, basically to help you to lose weight. But despite fasting for long hours, you actually see people gain weight during Ramadan. Why does that happen?
Yeah, so once again, this is maybe not to do with how the body reacts to fasting. It stands to reason that if we are going to be fasting on a regular basis, that we will lose weight. So weight gain in this instance, the explanation offered by the scientists who did this research was that it's a cultural behavior. That food is intimately related to culture. And the culture in many, many instances in Muslim societies around iftar and what happens after Taraweeh is that we end up consuming more calories in that time than we would normally have consumed during a normal working day when we were not fasting. And that's probably, that's quite an interesting thing that even in areas, even in areas where people have lost weight, studies where people have lost weight during Ramadan, that weight is rapidly gained again after Ramadan. So the relation between fasting and weight gain is one which is tenuous. In other words, it's kind of, it doesn't hold fast in all places at all times. And it's also not maintained over a long period of time. It's a transient loss of weight just for the time that you're fasting, and almost within 1 or 2 days after Ramadan, people start gaining that weight again. But the explanation for weight gain during Ramadan is because it's the cultural type. Typically when people looked at, when people's diets were surveyed during Ramadan, it was found that they were consuming more calorie-rich, oily foods and protein, less proteins in Ramadan than they would have consumed outside of Ramadan. And that was quite interesting. But once again, as I said, food preferences, food habits, eating habits are largely intertwined with how we practice our culture. And Ramadan is such a central part of our culture. And if we're wanting to have a sustained impact on our weight during Ramadan, then it would mean that we'd have to think really deeply about our cultural practices around food.
Yes, you're listening to Nightline, Friday night Ramadan edition. People are getting confused. Somebody thought that how is it possible for us to be on a Friday night? Remember, we're on a Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. And as we mentioned, we speak here about the science of health in fasting. So we have a caller who had mentioned, I think this is from overseas, +1, I think could be United States or Canada, says, thank you so much to the doctor for the valuable information. Alhamdulillah. Now, doctor, hydration plays a very important role because a lot of people face dehydration, and especially we are in a humid city in Durban. What advice would you give listeners of hydration?
Okay, that's such a good question. Obviously, the first bit of advice is when you're not fasting, hydrate all the time. And particularly from the time that you're breaking your fast, you need to be And I normally tell people, don't drink lots of water in one go. Rather, sip all the time. And you know that number one, one of the first signs of dehydration is when we start feeling thirsty. So all of us feel thirsty during the day while we're fasting. So at night, we shouldn't wait for thirst before we start drinking water. I'm saying water, not sugary sodas. And if we're going to be drinking tea and coffee, we should be minimizing that because the caffeine in the tea and coffee is a diuretic, so it just makes you pass out the water that you've been drinking. Dehydration is an unavoidable reality, but when I looked at some of the literature around dehydration and the impact on the kidneys, because we're most concerned about the kidneys as your first line of defense against dehydration, it showed that people who have healthy kidneys, there is a short-term impact on the kidneys while they're fasting, but they very, very rapidly reverse that as soon as they drink sufficient amounts of water at night. So my rule of thumb is don't wait until you're thirsty. Drink as a norm. Sip the whole night, and aim to drink as much water until your urine is clear. If your urine is clear and not concentrated, when concentrated urine is quite dark and yellow, and that would mean typically that your body is needing to absorb the water out of your urine because there isn't enough water in your system. And so the color of your urine is a good indicator of whether or not you are dehydrated. Dehydration has many effects negatively on our body, from the so-called minor effects. It adds to our fatigue. It can potentially lead to headaches. The brain is very, very sensitive to dehydration. And so things like, particularly amongst our older folk who are insistent on fasting, the dehydration in them can cause dizziness, loss of balance, can cause problems with the ability to remember. So it can start to affect how the cognition works, so memory, confusion, and that's just in the brain. We're not even talking about the rest of the body. The second big organ that we're worried about with dehydration is your kidneys. And when I looked at some of the research around the world looking at kidney function, there were clear statements coming out of particularly a fairly large study in Indonesia, clear statements around if there's pre-existing kidney problems before Ramadan, the guidance to those patients is you should not be fasting. I mean, you understand that the big separation between what we do in Ramadan and what other people do for intermittent fasting is that they are able to hydrate right through the day. So, but in Ramadan, patients with pre-existing kidney problems, there's strong evidence to show that those people that insist on fasting, when they exit Ramadan, they've worsened their kidney function, which means that there's more damage to the kidneys. So what then happens is your period after Ramadan is now with kidneys that are weaker than they were before you started fasting in Ramadan. And that's an irreparable damage. So, strong word of caution, hydration is vitally important. Don't wait until you're thirsty. Drink in small amounts continuously. Monitor whether you have enough by the amounts and the color of your urine. For certain people, dehydration can be really deleterious to their health and even fatal in some instances. So if you have any of the conditions I've just mentioned, then you need to see a medical professional and make an informed decision about whether or not fasting is for you.
Brother Mahomed?
Dr. Saab, I have, if you have dehydration, is it a possibility that your lower back ache is as a result of your lack of water, and maybe your kidneys are playing up?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and I think a common question, and I must say that it is a common misconception that dehydration can lead to lower back pain. I'll tell you how it can lead to lower back pain, but not because of the kidneys. When your kidneys pain, like if you have an infection or if the kidneys are swollen, the kidneys pain when they swell up, you can certainly get flank pain, which is pain in the side, but not lower back pain as we understand, around the lower end of your spine. It's a different type of problem. So dehydrated kidneys tend to shrink. They don't tend to swell up. You can just think like anything, if you like a sponge. When the kidney is dehydrated, it tends to shrink in. And so kidneys that are shrinking, generally you're not going to feel pain from them. When you can feel pain, and this is a fairly common problem in Ramadan, is dehydration leads to increased rates of kidney stones. But the kidney stone pain, as anyone who has had kidney stones would know, is not lower back pain. It's pain from your side all the way down your groin into your private area, and it is excruciatingly painful. And that can be a direct result of dehydration. And what then happens in that instance is you have crystallization of urine chemicals in the pipe which leads out of your kidney, and that can cause blockages which are extremely painful. So no, the short answer is that lower back pain on its own, probably not related to kidneys, but let me say this. When you have dehydration, chances are 90%, 9 out of 10, the chances are that you also have some type of salt imbalance, potassium, magnesium, calcium. Maybe not a major salt imbalance to impact on your lifestyle, on your health in a major way, but enough just to make you feel off. And some of these salt imbalances, particularly things like magnesium and potassium, can cause us to have muscular aches. And the muscular aches can give you mostly limb aches, legs and calves, but also can give you some pains in your lower back. And then if you have other problems in your back and you could just have it could just be flaring up for whatever reason. But on its own, kidneys, I thought I must just give that, because that's a common misconception that your kidneys give you lower back pain.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a spiritual question now.
Mm-hmm.
There's spiritual great benefit in fasting Mondays and Thursdays.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mahomed. We didn't hear you. We didn't hear your full question.
I said there must be great benefit in fasting on a Monday and a Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the benefit is undoubtedly spiritual, undoubtedly. And it's one of the things I said earlier that, I would love to be able to be in a position to do some type of research looking at what the physical and the emotional impact is in those people who are fasting right through the year. I would imagine that there's going to be some type of carryover from Ramadan right through the year for that cohort of people. We don't have the evidence for it. And unfortunately, even in the Muslim majority countries where a lot of this research comes from, nobody's really looked at that type of fasting. So I don't have the evidence to say, but I would certainly spiritually, there's no denying that.
But from the physical benefits that you spoke about, that one experienced during Ramadan, surely I would think that Monday and Thursday will be very beneficial to the body.
No, I agree with you. I think that would be the hypothesis that we'd start off with. And the scientific method is that we then go and collect data to see if that hypothesis is true or not. So you formulated a good hypothesis. The next step is now to gather the evidence to show whether that hypothesis is true or not true. So I agree with you. I think it certainly does warrant some research going forward, because it would be valuable for us to, even though, I mean, at the end of the day, we want people to fast for its spiritual benefits. But if there are other benefits to accrue, then we need to also inform people about that.
I think after my discussion with you, I think after Ramadan, I'm going to start fasting Monday and Thursday. You have the hypothesis. You can come back to us with the research result.
I mean.
And Dr. I'll basically use him as a test subject, and I'll monitor
very good.
On a regular basis.
There can be no cheating.
No cheating, yeah, correct. Very quickly, just coming to the end, I don't want to keep you up now till Seri. Islam, because we can go on to Seri, by the way. It's very interesting.
I see you've got the energy.
We're only warming up, Doc. We're only warming up. But nevertheless, there are some exemptions that Islam allows for certain people when fasting that could harm their health.
Absolutely.
From a medical perspective, who should be cautious about fasting?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few people who must be cautious. I think just generally, if someone is suffering any type of serious illness, which is impacting on their ability to function on a day-to-day basis, they're the first group of people I would think about. The second group is also quite important, and I'm going to say it commonly. You know that the Durban community has one of the highest rates of diabetes in the world. Now, yeah. I mean, if you didn't know that, now you do. The Durban community of Indian origin has the highest prevalence of diabetes globally.
I think it's to do with the biryani.
I don't know what they're putting in the biryani, Dr. Jeewa, but something. In Cape Town, we eat the biryani with dahi, which is the buttermilk and dhania. And anyway, so we're not saying diabetics can't fast. Actually, the evidence has been when you're a stable diabetic with no organ damage, fasting is good for you. So the first cohort of patients, the first group of patients that I think about are those who are diabetic, who are able to control their diabetes with lifestyle. They can fast. The second group of those are patients who need tablets. So your typical tablets that you're buying, that you're getting on a chronic medication, as long as you don't have any organ damage, there's no problem. Those people can fast. The third group are those who are on mixed injectable and tablets. And these are the ones where we need to start. When I say injectables, I mean insulin on a daily basis. These are the groups of people that we must start thinking about with caution. We're not saying don't fast. Generally, the guideline says there was a fairly good guideline produced by a Libyan group about 10 years ago, which we've been using for years now. So generally, if this group of patients who are on mixed insulin and oral medications, if the sugar levels are controlled and the kidneys are healthy, then they can fast. With a proviso that the people who are around him and they must understand what the dangers of hypoglycemia are. Hypoglycemia is when your sugar level goes so low that it starts to affect your ability to know what's going on around you. Very dangerous condition because people can drop into a coma and develop severe brain damage because of this condition. And then the fourth group are those patients who are on insulin. And these are the patients who should not be fasting at all. Insulin metabolism is directly affected by fasting, and the risk of them going into a hypoglycemic coma, a low blood sugar coma, is extremely high. And on the flip side, they can't not take the insulin because they're also at risk of going into another complication of diabetes, which is diabetic ketoacidosis or hyperosmolar coma, both of which are, all of which, low blood sugar, extremely high blood sugar, and the acidosis, all of which are life-threatening complications. And so those patients who are on multiple injections of insulin every single day should not be fasting. And that applies to the youngsters who have type 1 diabetes also, who have diabetes from the young age. And we know that the type 1 diabetics, they need to be on insulin every single day. They cannot fast. And then your diabetics who have kidney problems. Certainly, the guidance is quite strong. These patients should not be fasting. And then the kidney warning extends to all other patients who have kidney conditions. Strong recommendation that fasting can worsen your kidney function and put your life at risk. And so in those instances, the pragmatic person would say the intention of fasting is never to harm our bodies even more, particularly not to put our lives at risk or our good quality of life at risk. And so the recommendation is that patients with pre-existing kidney problems, whatever the cause of that may be, should not be fasting.
Just a final question, Doctor. As a Muslim and a medical professional, how do you view the relationship between faith and science when it comes to fasting?
There's no separation for me. I think my approach is that Allah's wonder is reflected in all of His creation, and so what we're looking for whenever we do these types of research, when we look at nature, when our minds are filled with the wonder of Allah's creation, then we acknowledge Allah's mercy and His rahmah in everything that we experience. So there's no, in my mind, there's no tension between faith and science. There's complete alignment. Science gives us a way to explain what we can see and feel and touch. And faith gives meaning to all of that.
Well said. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing with us your insight. That was Dr. Taslim Bas giving us a medical perspective on the science of fasting during the blessed month of Ramadan. And when we return on Nightline, we'll discuss some of the biggest mistakes that people make with their diet during Ramadan and how to fast in a healthier way. So stay with us, and we'd like to thank our special guest for accepting our invitation so late. May Allah Ta'ala reward you, and thank you very much, Dr. Taslim Bas.
Ameen.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I can hear the footsteps from afar, drawing near until it hit my heart. Heard a knock, so I went to the door. Not like any knock I've heard before. This was very gentle in approach. Felt it came with happiness and hope. Now I feel my heart is beating fast. Open up to my surprise at last. Ya Allah, thank you for another chance standing at my door. Ya Allah, you've given me hope. Delivered this gift right to my home. مرحب مرحب يا رمضان، أحيي قلوبنا بالقرآن، حل ليالنا بالقيام، أهلا أهلا بالصيام. يا رمضان يا رمضان، شهر الرحمة والغفران. مرحب مرحب يا رمضان، أهلا أهلا بالصيام. You told me you were here for 30 days to shower us with mercy just like rain, to make it easier to change ourselves. Protect me from this world and from myself. Oh, please keep me company, old friend. You bless me in my hope once again. I'm fortunate I get another chance to witness these nights, so I raise my hand.
We are excited to share that the brand new section of the restaurant, that's the Atrium Spur, is now open to public, and we can't wait for you to experience the new look. We are now moving into phase 2 of our revamp, which will temporarily affect the kids' areas, toilets, and the section in front of the kids' play area for the next week or so. The majority of the restaurant remains open and trading as usual, and we look forward to unveiling the exciting upgrades we've been building for the little ones. They go on to say, Spur says, thank you very much for your patience while we continue creating an even better Spur experience. Ramadan Big Break Box, as we had mentioned earlier on, brings together an old school burger, spicy chicken pops, chili mac and cheese puck, crispy onion, cheesy heat bomb, side slaw and dip. Everything you need on one tray built to share, and that is only $1.99 available at Rocco Mama's. So Spurs open until midnight from 13 to 19 March during the Atrium Eid Shopping Festival, and Saturday night we are open until 4 a.m. for Sunday Seri. Spur is open till midnight while Eid Shopping Festival is taking place in the Atrium. We'd like to thank our sponsor for tonight.
That was the Late Night Bite segment, proudly brought to you by Rocco Mamas, Florida Road, Oceans Mall, and Pavilion. This Late Night Bite segment is proudly brought to you by Spur Chippewa at the Atrium, celebrating 25 years of great meals and family moments, with a fresh new look and kiddies area coming soon.
That's our guest for tonight, Spurs from Atrium. We're going to go for a quick ad break, and we'll be back with you after this. I don't know whether listeners are around listening to us, or maybe not used to us having Nightline on a Friday night. We'd like to hear from you, 060-904-1056. You're listening to Nightline Friday Night Ramadan Special.
Radio Al Ansar Pietermaritzburg invites you to their Ramadan Halim distribution. Join us at 240 Ortman Road every Saturday from 1:30 p.m. Let's come together to share a meal and spread kindness this Ramadan. That's the Radio Al Ansar Pietermaritzburg's Halim distribution, 240 Ortman Road, Pietermaritzburg, every Saturday from 1:30 p.m. Sponsored by the Capital Group of Companies.
Looking for that perfect sparkle at an unbeatable price? Visit Vouder Jewelers at the Pavilion for our spectacular 50% Eid sale on gold and diamond jewelry and watches. Yes, half price on stunning pieces you love. Plus, explore our beautiful new range of trendy silver jewelry, perfect for everyday elegance. And for your peace of mind, we also offer free zakah valuations. Don't miss out.
This Ramadan, give the gift of clean water with Africa Muslims Agency. With every water well or borehole you donate, your drop becomes a river, reconnecting communities to nourishment, education, dignity, and empowerment. Sponsor a water well for 16,500 Rand in Africa, or a borehole for 65,000 Rand in Afghanistan or Africa. Quench the thirst, reconnect the soul with Africa Muslims Agency.
This Ramadan, let Holton's take care of your cravings. Fresh, ready-to-heat savories and a mouth-watering daily menu await. Savor Nawaz Mandra's famous chicken and lamb halim with fresh naan daily, plus Dooley's halim on selected days. Craving something sweet? Indulge in Bombay Crush, dates, biscuits, cakes, and heavenly fresh cream donuts and eclairs. For all your Ramadan and Eid essentials, visit Holton's, 358 Brickfield Road, open from 8 a.m. daily. Call 031-207-6108. Holton's, your taste of tradition.
Are you looking for Islamic accessories that embody tradition and elegance? Look no further than Taiba Exclusive Islamic Accessories, your premier destination for high-quality, stylish, authentic accessories for men. Discover everything from finely crafted kufis and shawls to turbans, signature fragrances, rich buhur, Ramadan essentials, Eid gifting, and more. Complete the experience. Infuse your garments with luxury using our exclusive buhur clothing hanger. Taiba has everything you need to elevate your style with timeless tradition. Visit us at Shop 7 Gem Towers, 98 Overport Drive, Ascentwood, and discover a curated selection of premium products from around the world designed to enhance your everyday lifestyle. Or shop online at taiba.co.za. WhatsApp us at 083 607 2488. Taiba, exclusive Islamic accessories. Save the date. Hajj Seminar 2026 is back. Saturday, 11th April, 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at 207 West Road in Overport. Proudly brought to you by the Al Ansar Foundation and the Capital Group of Companies.
My John, will you marry me?
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. We're getting married.
Yes, we are.
Okay, but just one thing.
Uh-oh, what?
I have to get my wedding gown from Jasmine's Bridal.
Like there was ever another option. Because when you say yes, everything should be perfect. Starting with the dress. Discover our timeless collection of bridal gowns starting at just 5,000 Rand and make your special day truly unforgettable.
Best day ever.
Jasmine's Bridal, where your love story begins in style. During this blessed month of Ramadan, Checkstar continues to serve the community with warmth, convenience, and thoughtful value for every home. Come take advantage of our humble savings. 500 gram First Choice salted butter for just 59.99. Masia 5 kg basmati rice, just 129.99. 1.5 kg butter ghee for just 219 Rand 99. Deals valid until March 8th. Checkstar wishes the community a blessed Ramadan filled with peace, reflection, and shared moments around the table. Checkstar really cares. This Ramadan, break your fast with bold, authentic Thai flavors. Indulge in crispy prawn spring rolls, mouth-watering chicken and prawn steamed dumplings, flavor-packed noodles, and comforting hot soups, crafted to truly satisfy after a long day of fasting. Visit our halal branches at Gateway, Pearls, Saxony Westwood, and Malvern Park, and enjoy a complimentary starter on us when you dine in. Fresh ingredients, real Thai recipes, unforgettable flavor. Simply Asia, proudly brought to you by SNA Family Foods.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg, 105.6 FM.
Tonight's program is sponsored by Chipper Whisper, open till late at the atrium. Welcome back. You're listening to Nightline with your host, myself, Anwar Jeewa, and brother Mahomed Variawa. If you had missed out on the wonderful interview that we had with Dr. Taslim Raz, which was very, very informative. And as you know, tonight we are speaking about something that's deeply personal, something that's spiritual, something that's physical, something that millions of people around the world are experiencing right now. There's hunger, thirst, self-restraint, and reflection. Now, because across the globe, from the bustling cities of Asia to the deserts of Middle East, to communicate right here in Durban and across South Africa, we all know Muslims are observing the sacred fast of Ramadan. From the first light of dawn until the sun slips beneath the horizon, they abstain. No food, no water, no indulgence. But here is a question. Is fasting simply an act of religious devotion? Or is something more extraordinary happening inside the human body during these long hours without food and drink? Which the doctor has explained. For more than 1400 years, Muslims had fasted because it's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, an act of obedience, a pillar of faith. Yet today, modern science is catching up to something remarkable, because scientists around the world are studying what happens when the human body goes without food for extended period. And what they're discovering is astonishing. When we fast, the body does not simply suffer. It adapts, it shifts, it begins to transform itself. Within hours, insulin level drops, stored sugars are used up, then the body switches gears and then begins burning fat. But that is only the beginning. Deep within ourselves, something even more fascinating begins to occur. Literally means self-eating. It's the body's way of cleaning house. Damaged cells are broken down, toxins are cleared, old components are recycled. So in other words, the body begins a kind of a biological repair program. The discovery was so groundbreaking that a Japanese scientist was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology for Medicine for his work explaining this whole process. And here is the extraordinary part. Long before the labs discovered this mechanism, long before health influencers became promoting trendy diets, long before the term intermittent fasting became a global wellness phenomenon, Muslims were already fasting, not for weight loss, not for detox, not for a longer life, but for taqwa, consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what makes fasting unique. Because while science can't explain what happens to the body, it cannot fully measure what happens to the soul. Fasting teaches discipline, it teaches patience, it teaches empathy for those who live with hunger every day. When your throat becomes dry, when your stomach begins to ache, then you begin to understand the reality of poverty, the reality of deprivation, the reality of human vulnerability. And fasting also raises important questions about health. Is fasting good for the body? Does it truly detoxify the system? Can it improve heart health, brain functions, and metabolism? Or are some of the claims exaggerated? But perhaps just as importantly, why do so many of us manage to gain weight during Ramadan, the very month of fasting? So tonight on Nightline, we're exploring the fascinating intersection between faith and science. We unpack what actually happens inside the human body during the fast. We look at the medical research. We examine the benefits and the myths and the mistakes that many people make during Ramadan. Because fasting is not just about staying away from food or drink, it's about transformation. Transformation of the body, transformation of the mind, and most importantly, transformation of the heart. So stay with us. You are listening to Nightline, and we're going to explore the science of health and fasting. Brother Mohammed?
Yeah, the doctor was quite interesting, actually. I was very impressed with what he had to say. We are now on the 17th day, I think, of fasting. I think fasting is very much more spiritual, but the benefits of the body comes with the fact that we have to fast. I think most people fasting, alhamdulillah, and I'm sure they make some differences to the body. I don't know how far as weight loss is concerned. I don't think many of us lose weight during the month of Ramadan. I think we eat too many savories, too many oily foods, and we just put on weight because that one meal that we have takes care of our 3 meals a day. I'm not too sure what people eat. We'd like to hear from our listeners. 060904105.
Yes, so while we're waiting for your comments, contribution, and questions, let's listen very quickly to a short clip.
Today we're going to talk about the relationship between fasting during Ramadan and its immune effects. Ramadan lasts between 29 and 30 days, and you're required not to drink or eat anything just before sunrise to just after sunset. This is a dry fast, and what I mean by dry fast is you're not drinking any water. Now, before we get into the benefits, I do want to point out this one very, very important point. If you look at some of the studies done on Ramadan, you're going to see some mixed reviews. And I think the reason for that, because what you eat before and after you fast is going to make or break your success. If you are eating a lot of junk food, refined carbohydrates, that is going to greatly inhibit these amazing effects that you could achieve if you added keto-friendly foods, low carb, during the meals. I mean, think about it. Ketones in general are antimicrobial. When you do fasting, you actually decrease what's called cytokines. There are different types of cytokines, and cytokines are chemical messages that communicate between your immune cells. There are certain cytokines that cause inflammation, and those are the ones that we're talking about. So it'll decrease the trigger to inflammation. Also, it will stimulate something called macrophages. A macrophage is a large cell that eats bacteria and microbes and viruses. This is like a professional, what's called a phagocyte, which not just is like a garbage disposal, but it is a deadly killer and one of the first lines of defense for any type of invasion for microbes. So the more you can stimulate macrophages, the better the immune system. All right, next thing is it will increase the microbiome. What is the microbiome? That describes your friendly microbes in your body that help you. A great majority of your immune system, and I'm talking like 70%, is located in your large intestine. And I'm talking about a microbiome, which I did a video on, and I'll put that link down below, gives you incredible immune support. And without it, your risk for infection goes straight up in vertical. When you do fasting, which is kind of weird because you're actually kind of starving them, they live longer. There's certain type of genetic things that get triggered that support your immune system. Next thing is resistance to stress. When you fast, you increase your capacity to fight off stress, as well as DNA damage too. Also, when you fast, you decrease oxidative stress. You're going to have less free radicals. You're also going to get an increase in production of your antioxidant networks, which also can help as well. And lastly, fasting will increase autophagy, which is your body's ability to recycle old damaged parts as well as microbes. There's a very specific type of autophagy called xenophagy, which targets pathogens. One huge benefit of fasting is basically the elimination of these microbes that can stay dormant in your body for many, many years. Ramadan has huge, powerful effects on the immune system, but I think it could be a lot better if you also add keto. If you're new to my channel, I put a link down below of exactly what you should be eating to enhance your benefits. If you
Razia says, Jazakallah, the information the doctor informed us was very beneficial and must have benefited many, many listeners. Now, there are certain myths, Brother Mahomed, so let's go through it together, okay? There are 10 controversial Ramadan health myths, okay? Now, we're going to shift gears for a moment here on Nightline. Now, every Ramadan, we hear advice from everywhere, from the family, from social media, from friends, from WhatsApp groups. And everyone suddenly becomes a nutrition expert during Ramadan. But tonight, we're going to challenge some of those ideas because not everything we believe about fasting and health is true. So let's go through the 10 controversial Ramadan health myths that you might find that some of them are very uncomfortable to hear. Okay. So the first one here, as we spoke early on, fasting automatically makes you lose weight. That's the first one. And I think we did discuss this a little bit. Okay, but people feel that guaranteed you are going to lose weight. Not necessary. In fact, many people gain weight during Ramadan. Why? Because we spoke about it, because fasting all day and then you go and overeat at night, as you had mentioned, that can increase your calorie intake. Large iftar meals, sugary drinks, and fried foods completely cancel the benefits of fasting. The second myth, the more you eat at suhoor, the longer you won't feel hungry. So if you're thinking that you push in as much as you can at suhoor time, then that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Because overeating at suhoor does not prevent hunger later. In fact, when you have large, heavy meals, it can spike your insulin and make hunger return faster. So when your insulin level goes high, you get more hungry. Balanced meal with protein and slow release carbohydrates are much more effective. The third myth, you must drink huge amounts of water at suhoor. But remember what the doc said, you have to do them slowly. So drinking excessive water all at once doesn't hydrate your body for the whole day. The body simply flushes out the excess. Hydration works best when water is consumed gradually from the time you break your fast right up till you start fasting. The fourth myth, fried food is fine because you've been fasting the whole day. And this is where many Ramadan diets collapse. So you get deep fried foods like samosas and also like samosas, pies, and fried snacks can overload the digestive system after a long fast. The body has been resting and suddenly it's hit with heavy, oily food. That can cause fatigue, bloating, and weight gain. The next one is fasting detoxifies the body completely. Fasting does not activate processes like the autophagy, where cells break down damaged components, but the body heals. The body's real detox system are your liver and kidneys, so fasting supports health, but it's not a magical detox. The sixth myth, you shouldn't exercise while fasting. Moderate exercise is actually safe for many people, but light activity such as walking before iftar can support metabolism and overall health. However, extremely intense workouts during fasting hours may cause hydration. Myth 7, dates are unhealthy because they contain sugar. I mean, come on, people encourage dates when you normally break fast. So this is very misleading because breaking the fast with dates is actually beneficial. Dates contain natural sugars, fibers, potassium, and essential nutrients. They provide quick energy after fasting without overwhelming the digestive system. Myth 8, coffee helps you to stay energetic while you're fasting. In reality, caffeine can actually increase dehydration. It can also disrupt sleep during Ramadan nights. Excessive caffeine may leave people feeling more tired the next day. Myth 9, everyone must fast regardless of health. As we spoke about those that are exempted from fasting, Islam does not promote the harming of the body. People with serious medical conditions such as type 1 diabetes or severe illness may need medical guidance before fasting. Islam allows exemption where fasting can cause harm to the body. The last myth, Ramadan is only about food. And perhaps this is the most important myth to challenge because Ramadan has increasingly become associated with lavish meals and extravagant iftar tables, but Ramadan is not a food festival. It's time for reflection, discipline, clarity, and spiritual growth. Fasting is meant to control our desires, not shift them from daylight to nightlight. So to the listeners, anyone listening there, let's hear from you. Which of the myth do you think is most common in our community? Is it the overeating, the fried foods, the sugary drinks, or the idea that fasting automatically makes us healthy? We love to hear your thoughts, 06090411056. You're listening to Nightline on Radio Al Ansar, and we're discussing the science of health and fasting during Ramadan.
زينت السماء وضعت الجبال أمرت البحار وخلقت الجنان سيرت الكواكب أضأت النجوم فجرت الأنهار فأرحت القلوب وللعباد أنزلت الإسلام وللهداية أنزلت القرآن أرسلت من الظلام إلى الضياء سألت حين رفعت يدي عن رحمة وسعت كل شيء في ضعف ربي أشكو إليك لكنني راض بما قضيت إن شئت قلت كن فيكون وزلت عني كل الهموم أنت الكريم وأنت الرحيم أنت السلام وأنت السميع majestic and mighty, the King of the worlds, the Lord of creations and the heavens above. You're closer to me than my jugular vein. You answer my prayers when I'm hurt and in pain. and in return for worship and love.
This Ramadan, break your fast the Rocco Mama's way with the all-new Big Break Box. Inside, you'll find an old-school burger, spicy chicken pops, chili mac and cheese puck, crispy onion rings, a cheesy heat bomb, plus slaw, and a dip to finish it off. Perfect for sharing, perfect for iftar. Available now at Rocco Mama's, Florida Road, Oceans Mall, and Pavilion. Rocco Mama's, we're not normal.
You give eternal peace beyond love, and all around we see all your signs. Hear every prayer, so here's mine. سألت حين رفعت يدي عن رحمة وسعت كل شيء في ضعف ربي أشكو إليك لكنني راض بما قضيت إن شئت قلت كن فيكون.
That was the Late Night Bite segment, proudly brought to you by Rocco Mama's, Florida Road, Oceans Mall, and Pavilion.
عن رحمة وسعت كل شيء في ضعف ربي أشكو إليك لكنني راض بما قضيت إن شئت قلت كن فيكون وزلت عني كل الهموم أنت الكريم وأنت الرحيم أنت السلام وأنت السميع.
Welcome back. You're listening to Nightline. It's approximately 5 minutes past 12. Brother Mohammed, you can hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah, no, we switch you to another system so that you don't get cut off. So you won't be able to see me. Razia
Okay, that's fine. I can hear you.
Okay. Razia sent a very, very nice feedback. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for your input. She says here, I think the most important thing we take from his advice and other doctors that are advising on different programs is to drink lots of water, inshallah, from iftar to suhoor. Lots of water, but again, please slowly, yeah? Not too quick, not too fast. Very important with dehydration is the heat we're experiencing and a possibility of kidney problem. And yes, Mohammed is absolutely true. Too many savories and desserts, but we need to change our iftar and suhoor meals. We cut out salads and veggies. Lighter iftar suhoor meals will only benefit us. And alhamdulillah, I've seen the benefits of keeping away from savories and cold water or fuzzy drinks and milkshake loaded with ice cream. And yes, doc, exercise is also very important. But after Taraweeh or just before iftar and a good shower that energizes us to perform Taraweeh Salah, alhamdulillah. So I'm not picking on our men folk, but if they decide that Ramadan isn't about savories and oily food after Taraweeh desserts, inshallah, it'll benefit not only the families, but make life easier for women folk who are in the kitchen, most especially before iftar. And we also want to make ibadat and will have the energy to perform Taraweeh and Quran tilawat. So let's change our thinking. And there's so many healthy and tasty alternatives for suhoor and iftar. Brother Mohammed, your comment?
So I agree with everything that you just said. It's important that we take into account all the myths during Ramadan. This savories and oily foods and milkshakes and all this stuff is not good.
That's so true. Okay, another important point that I want to speak about, which is somehow related to this, Ramadan in the modern world. Are we losing the spirit of fasting? Right, so let's pause for a moment tonight on Nightline and ask a very difficult question. A question many people may feel but few are willing to say it aloud. As Muslims around the world observe this blessed month of Ramadan, and we're already halfway there, we see incredible scenes of devotion. Mosques are full for night prayers, families gathering for iftar, communities sharing food, acts of charity increasing. But alongside these beautiful traditions, another reality is also emerging, a reality that forces us to ask, are we truly losing the spirit of Ramadan? Because if we are honest tonight, Ramadan today often looks like very different from what it's meant to be. For many people, the focus of Ramadan has quietly shifted. Instead of a month of simplicity, it has become a month of excess. Instead of restraint, we sometimes see indulgence. Instead of reflection, we see distraction. Think about it. Hours before sunset, the kitchen becomes the world and it becomes busy preparing iftar spreads. Tables are overflowing with food, fried snacks, sugary drink, desserts. Platters that could easily feed twice the number of people sitting at the table. And sometimes after fasting for 14 hours, we eat so much that we can barely move. So the question must be asked, is this the purpose of fasting? Because fasting was never meant to be about how much we eat after sunset. It was meant to teach us how to control our desires. And Ramadan in the modern world is facing new challenges. Social media, food culture, commercialization, and today Ramadan promotions fill supermarkets. Restaurants advertise special iftar deals, food videos flood our screens. In some places, Ramadan has become an economic season. So a month where consumption actually increases, then there's another challenge, distraction. Late night scrolling through phones, streaming shows, endless social media, and before we know it, Ramadan passes, and we ask ourselves, what really changed inside me during this Ramadan? Because fasting is not about staying away from food, it's about discipline in the tongue, the eyes, the heart, and the mind. A person can still fast, but yet still gossip, still argue, still lose patience, still engage in the behavior that contradicts the spirit of Ramadan. And that raises another uncomfortable question. Have we reduced fasting to a physical ritual while neglecting its spiritual transformation? The purpose of fasting is to build taqwa, a deep awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to soften the heart, to increase compassion for those who struggle every day with hunger and poverty, to remind us of the dependence of our Creator, because when we feel hungry and when we feel thirst, we begin to understand something very profound about the human condition. You realize how fragile we really are, and that humility is meant to bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So tonight we ask our listeners, in the modern world, are we losing the spirit of Ramadan? Has Ramadan become too focused on food, entertainment, and routine? Or do we believe that the essence of Ramadan is still strong in our community? We would like to hear from you. You're listening to Nightline on Radio Al Ansar as we explore the deeper meaning behind fasting during Ramadan. Let's listen to this.
This is what Ramadan fasting does to our bodies. Science reveals Ramadan fasting has amazing benefits on our bodies. First, there's our gut. Our digestive system is constantly on overdrive from the modern diet of processed foods, lack of fiber, and overconsumption of meat. This is why we're seeing a rise in digestive disorders like IBS and colorectal cancer. Fasting in Ramadan gives your bowels a rest, promoting positive gut health. Next, your immune system, your body's natural protection against infections and cancer. Fasting increases white blood cells and antibodies, which are your body's policemen fighting infections. Need to lose a few pounds? Fasting is great for healthy weight loss too. After burning through your calories from suhoor, your body taps into stored fat for fuel in the rest of the fasting day. Concerned about cholesterol? Fasting also helps decrease bad cholesterol that leads to plaque blocking up your arteries, just like a clogged kitchen sink that can lead to heart attack or stroke. Fasting also increases good cholesterol. And don't forget your brain. Fasting can boost memory and concentration. Ramadan is a phase shift in eating and sleeping, which is a brand new chronobiological pattern for the brain to adapt to. This makes your brain work harder, which leads to growth and development. Fasting can also improve your mental health by reducing anxiety and depression. Your fasting brain increases serotonin production, which boosts your mood and decreases symptoms of anxiety. There's no question that fasting in Ramadan is one of the best things you can do for your body. To learn more about the amazing effects fasting has on your entire body, click right here to visit RamadanReset.com and get free expert articles on how to have your healthiest Ramadan.
So very briefly described all the benefits. So let's just quickly recap before we end the show, the science and the health benefit of fasting.
For over 1.8 billion Muslims around the world, Ramadan is more than just a month of fasting. It is a spiritual journey, a test of discipline, and, as science has revealed, a gateway to remarkable health benefits. But how does fasting impact the body and mind? In this documentary, we uncover the science of fasting and the incredible ways Ramadan can transform human health. When we stop eating, the body shifts into survival mode, relying on stored energy. Glucose levels drop, and within hours, the body begins burning fat for fuel. But this is just the beginning. A nutritionist explains how the body switches from glucose metabolism to ketosis. One of the most exciting discoveries in fasting research is autophagy, a process where cells repair themselves, removing toxins and damaged structures. It's like a biological reset button. A scientist discusses Yoshinori Osumi's Nobel Prize-winning research on autophagy. Fasting doesn't just affect the body, it also rewires the brain. Studies show improved cognitive function, memory retention, and a boost in neuroplasticity. Could fasting be the key to mental clarity and longevity? A neuroscientist explains how fasting promotes the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor BDNF, which supports brain health. Intermittent fasting during Ramadan naturally regulates hormones like insulin, reducing the risk of diabetes and metabolic disorders. Let's explore how. An endocrinologist explains the relationship between fasting and improved metabolic health. Did you know that fasting can strengthen the immune system? Research suggests that fasting regenerates white blood cells, making the body more resilient to diseases. A medical doctor discusses studies linking fasting to immune function. While weight loss isn't the primary goal of Ramadan, many experience sustainable fat loss and muscle preservation. What makes fasting a natural weight management tool? A fitness expert explains why fasting helps with fat loss without muscle deterioration. Beyond physical health, fasting cultivates discipline, gratitude, and a deeper spiritual connection. How does this impact mental well-being? A psychologist explains the emotional resilience built through fasting. From Harvard to Oxford, scientists around the world are studying fasting. What have they discovered? A research scientist discusses key findings from fasting-related studies. Ramadan fasting is unique compared to other fasting methods. How does it differ from intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating? A health expert compares the effects of different fasting approaches. As science uncovers more about fasting, could it become a prescription for health? The answers lie in ongoing research. A longevity expert shares insights into the potential of fasting in extending life expectancy. Ramadan is more than abstaining from food. It's a journey of renewal, discipline, and health. Whether for faith or well-being, the benefits of fasting are undeniable. If you found this documentary insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more science-backed exploration.
Just to recap the last part before I end the show, what happens to your body during fasting?
What happens to your body when you fast during Ramadan? During the month of Ramadan, Muslims fast from sunrise till sunset every day of the lunar month. The Ramadan fast can be a natural and effective way for the body to detox and revitalize itself. But this can only happen if you follow a healthy eating plan and do not overindulge for iftar. Try your best to avoid processed and fried foods this month, since we only have a
That was the Late Night Bite segment, proudly brought to you by Rocco Mamas, Florida Road, Oceans Mall, and Pavilion. This Late Night Bite segment is proudly brought to you by Spur Chippewa at the Atrium, celebrating 25 years of great meals and family moments, with a fresh new look and kiddies area coming soon. That was the Late Night Bite segment, proudly brought to you by Spur Chippewa at the Atrium, bringing families together for 25 years.
Our sponsor for tonight, we're excited to share that the brand new section of the restaurant is now open to public, and we're speaking about the Spur Chippewa. So do not forget, please support Spurs. As we mentioned, Spurs open until midnight from 13 to 19 March during the Atrium Eat Shopping Festival. And Saturday night, we are open until 4 a.m. So Brother Mahomed seemed to have had a bit of a connection problem. And we could not get hold of him, but nevertheless, inshallah, remember, we'll be back with you tomorrow night again at approximately 10:30, and let's listen to this last nasheed, and inshallah, I wish you assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Are you there, Brother Mahomed?
Yeah, I'm here. I heard you.
Okay, sorry. I only heard you coughing and I realized, yeah. Was this going to end the show of a challenge on your side due to connection problem? You want to say anything in conclusion?
No, I just want to say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That's all you want to say?
It's finished now.
Okay. Are they tired? You sound very tired.
This dunya breaks me, Allah heals me, I fall again. He still sees me, He knows my heart, He knows my pain. So I say, Ya Rahman, again and again. This dunya breaks me, Allah hears me, I cry alone, but He comes near me. The world is loud, but His peace is clear. So I whisper, Ya Allah, stay near. Someday